Right. If you are searching for a sign or an answer, then you are in the right place. We are talking about how we can break free from food addiction today. So, we're going to review what we've learned about food addiction. We are going to look at whether it's better to do a gradual or a immediate type of change, and then what is best? Which one is best? All right. So, ladies, how are you today?
I'm doing great, Debbie.
Doing great. Yeah,
All
doing good
right.
too.
Thank you.
Super. So, let's get started. So, I look at my journey through food addiction and the changes that I've made in my life to my food and the way that I eat. And I have to say, it's kind of a bit of both, like dive right in and gradual as well in different aspects. So, from a perspective of diving right in, I started just over 10 years ago by doing a juice reboot with the Fat, Sick, and Nearly Dead with Joe Cross. And I did that immediately. And that was, my intention was to break my sugar addiction to processed foods or processed sugars. And so when I finished that process, which was 2 months for me, I decided that was it. I was no longer going to have any sugary, refined sugars at all, because I put a lot of work into what I did and the 2 months, and I didn't want to have to do it again and didn't want to backslide at all. So I have 99.99% held steadfast to that conviction that I had to not uh, have those sugary desserts and other things back in my life. At the same time, I decided to eliminate plant or animal products, and that was totally not part of my original plan. But when it comes to my food addictions, so that was kind of the jump in and do it all now. But when it comes to the food addictions, uh, I dealt with my sugar addiction, but it's taken me a lot longer to deal with all of my addictions and to really look at minimizing the processed foods. And so that has been a longer, more gradual journey. So, it doesn't mean it has to be all or none on everything, but you can kind of pick a gradual journey towards your health if you want. So we're going to dive into that. And we're going to start right now with a bit of a um, review of what we've learned so far. But I love my quotes, as you could probably tell. So I'm going to start with a quote from Martin Luther King Jr. The time is always right to do what is right. Okay, so the time is always right to do what is right. And I'll let you decide what that means for you in terms of what is right and also when that time is right. But it's always the right time to do what's right. And so, what have we learned? Okay, so the Western diet, also called the SAD, Standard American Diet, but it is not just in America, it is all across kind of your Western culture, and that's also kind of first world countries, if you will, like in the UK and Europe and Australia as well. is typically about 60% processed foods, 30% animal products, and 10% other, which includes, but is not all, 10% plant-based foods. And so from there, we can see we're eating a lot of processed foods and animal products. And we also learned that a lot of our food addiction happens to be sugar, oil, salty foods, and additives that can be addictive. And so that is all about processed foods. So when you're looking at processed foods, the food companies that engineer and make these foods are making them high sugar, high oil, high salt to make you addicted to the foods. And what happens over time is whatever is the normal in terms of your taste and what you like, these sugar SOS foods actually will dull your taste for you'll be expecting that taste, but dull your taste for kind of natural foods, the plant-based foods. So an apple doesn't taste sweet because your brain has neuroadapted to that higher level of sugar and is expecting that higher amount of sugar from a taste perspective. And so if you want to, your new normal becomes very high salt, sugar, and oil. And that's what you're expecting. And I can vouch for that because when I started my juice reboot, I made this beautiful green juice. It had some beautiful, I think Swiss chard and all these beautiful apples and stuff in it. And it just sounded so good. And then I tasted it and I'm like, oh my God, I'm going to be drinking that. It's like I didn't even know how I was going to get it down. And literally, I am not joking. I'm not lying. I plugged my nose, and all I could think is that I'm doing this for a reason. This is good for me. I know this is good for me. And I literally plugged my nose and drank down the juice. I could not drink it the way it was. And so that gives you an idea, or gave me an idea, of just how my taste buds had changed. So now I am feeling that it's definitely suboptimal. And so you have to go through that period where your taste buds are readjusting. And the good news is that your taste buds will readjust. It usually takes about 3 to 4 weeks. And what happened for me, because I didn't know that, but I just knew that I had to keep it up because I really had the conviction I was going to make the change. I really didn't want to stay where I was because I was starting to see impacts to my health and how I felt. So I did it anyway. And after a few weeks, I'm like, hey, I actually like this now. So it just kind of hit me one day that I actually was enjoying the juices. But it took about 3 weeks for that to happen for me. And so don't get discouraged because you can make the changes. And yes, if you're used to your taste buds, your system is used to the sugar, oil, and salt, when you do make changes and you incorporate more plant-based foods, you may not like the taste because you're looking for that high level of sugar, oil, and salt. And that's how we become addicted to them. And so also what we've learned is, we want to remove the processed foods. We need to incorporate fiber in our diet. That is what is going to keep us healthy. And animal products do not have fiber. And so as we move towards eating a diet that is going to sustain us, help us with our weight control. It's going to help us with chronic disease and inflammation and all those things. We want to eat real food. That means whole foods. And a whole food is something you can recognize as a food. It's the one that has no label when you go to the store. It's like the apples, the pears, the onions, the carrots, all of that. So those are your whole foods. So eat real food, not too much, and mostly plants. But we talked about this yesterday. If you're eating real food and you are eating mostly plants, what you will find is you do not have to count calories. You should not be counting calories. You should eat until you're satisfied, but don't be a glutton, I think is what it is. And what I find is when I eat my regular meals and I eat good meals and eat good food, I actually don't even have the urge to, do the snacking and stuff like that, because my food will sustain me between meals so that I'm not hungry and looking for something in between. And that's kind of where the snacking comes in. When I was after I had one of my kids, we had this pantry that kind of was open, and I mean, I was busy. I don't know if it was 2 or 3 kids, and you've got a baby. So one, you're tired, you're busy and all that stuff. So I was running around, and we had like the cookies, and they were supposed to be the healthy cookies, the snack wells or whatever, the healthy cookies, but really they weren't healthy. And I didn't eat my lunch. What I did is, as I was running between the kitchen and the living room and the bedroom, I would just grab a cookie. And what I didn't realize is I was grabbing a lot of cookies in between. So this is something, if you're eating real food and you're eating regular meals, then you likely are not going to get into those traps. All right. So that's a little bit of a recap of what we learned. And I love this. Eat real food, not too much, mostly plants. And that actually, if you get a chance to watch the documentary Fed Up, which you can Google and find on the internet, it's actually quite good. And they use that slogan for the most. They say eat food, not too much, but I'm going to say eat real food. So whole foods. And so what are you going to do? That's the question. So knowledge, they say knowledge is power, but it's not knowledge is powered. Applied knowledge is power. So if you don't do anything with what you learn, really, did you learn anything? But you have a choice. So you can decide that you're happy where you are. Maybe you don't have a food addiction. Maybe everything's well in your life. You're good. So that's all good. You're well right now. Everything's good. You have this information in case you want to make changes later. You may decide that you just want to make some small changes gradually and just kind of, make some changes. So how you can do that is maybe you switch out your afternoon snack or whatever that's like cookies for a smoothie or something like that. So you can make gradual changes, or you could be ready to dive in and say, yes, I'm all in. I'm tired of where I'm at. I'm sick and tired of being sick and tired, and I want to make a change. So these are it's your choice, and there's no right answer. It's what is right for you. So this is something that you need to decide yourself. And so if we look at what does it mean to do a gradual transition? So this would be transitioning away from processed foods and animal products and replacing them with plant-based foods. So this is something that you would do over time. Like I said, you could start by taking a food that you're eating now and replacing a processed or animal product and replace it with plant-based food. So maybe at dinner, one way people will do it is they'll do a meatless Monday, or you could do plant-powered Friday. The other way would be maybe you take your meat that you're eating as a protein at your dinner and replace it with some legumes or something else that's plant-based. So it's really, there's a lot of different variety and options that you can do. Like I said, you could do a smoothie and replace something you're eating. Maybe you replace your cereal at breakfast, which is coming out of a box, with a smoothie. So there's lots of things you can do that way. So this will allow you time to adjust your taste preferences, develop the cooking skills, the chopping skills, because I don't want if you're eating whole foods, you're going to be cooking and meal prepping more, likely, especially if you're eating a lot of processed foods now, because the processed foods are really great convenience foods, but they come with a lot of downside as well. That's the thing. You're trading convenience and your time for those downsides of the food addiction and potential chronic disease. So at least you have a chance to do that, and then you can kind of slip into some meal planning. It'll also help you to ease into some new dietary habits. You can explore plant-based foods. When I went plant-based, I learned a whole bunch about a whole bunch of foods that I didn't even know existed, like nutritional yeast. Well, I didn't know it existed, but I didn't know how to use it. I learned about using cashews to make beautiful cream sauces and cheeses and other things that I had no idea that was out there. It was an alternative. So you'll as you learn, you can explore new foods, and really what you're doing is you're really increasing your breadth of what you know about the food world. I've heard there's 350,000 different plants out there, and we tend to eat a very small amount. So as you explore, you're learning more. That's just good to learn more and try new things. And you can also gradually incorporate whole grains, fruits, vegetables, legumes, nuts, and seeds into your meals. And if you've been watching the Daily Energy Bite show, we've been talking a lot over many episodes about the benefits of whole grains, fruits, vegetables, legumes, nuts, and seeds. So those are all good things. So you can transition gradually. You could say, I'm just going to go now. I'm not going to wait. I'm just going to dive right in. So if you want to do that, you will likely see, especially if you have issues with your health, a rapid improvement in some of your health markers. Like a lot of people will see reduction in their cholesterol levels, improved blood pressure if your blood pressure is high. It's good for weight management. People with diabetes, often if they go head on into a whole food, plant-based lifestyle, can reverse the diabetes and get off of some of the medications that they're on. It's great for weight management. We talked a bit about that yesterday. And it's also good for improved energy. So that's some of the things that people who decide to go plant-based will have reported that they feel. And for me, I also felt definitely, I felt better and I had more energy. Those were things that I found when I went plant-based. And making that sudden switch to plant-based foods can also be a motivational boost and help you to have a sense of commitment to healthier eating. And you get it over right away. And again, if you have specific health concerns, you will have more likely to see quick results. I'm going to just there is a documentary that was done by Nelson Campbell, and I think it's the Food Network, Food Revolution Network, I believe is where it is. But at any rate, what they did is they took 6 individuals with diabetes who were quite advanced in their diabetes, like they weren't, a lot of them were taking insulin and may have other health problems as well. And they all were it's like they were in a home that was like a retreat center for 10 days. So just 10 days. They gave them a bunch of education on plant-based. They made the meals together. They had medical supervision and all sorts of things. And over the 10 days, all 5 out of the 6 were able to get off 100% off of their medications. So we're not talking, you'll see changes in a year. If you're serious and you do it all in, there is a chance. I'm not going to say it's 100% guarantee, but you could see fairly quick results, which also means that you need to be in close contact with your medical team and your doctor in case, because if you're you're seeing these great changes, then you may need to look at adjusting your medications, especially like, let's say, high blood pressure. If you're on blood pressure medication and you don't adjust it as your blood pressure changes, that could be quite serious. So if you want to do something, make sure you're doing it under doctor's supervision, but you could see significant health gains. Now, for this group of 6 people, the one person who didn't get off of all their meds was pretty close to off of all their meds within the 10 days. And unfortunately, I will say that and this is what we're going to talk about tomorrow, they went away, had such great results, and started to backslide into the life that they were living before this change in their diet. And they started to see that they needed to go back on some of the medications and stuff. So that's kind of the sad part. But tomorrow we are going to talk a little bit about some of the things, because I know there's lots of social pressures, and a lot of it had to do with, their families weren't on board. Their families didn't understand what they were doing and how they were eating. And it just was probably easier just to slip back into what they were eating with their family. I would say, I think the other benefit of the immediate transition is what you're doing. And for me, anyway, I like the immediate transition because if it's gradual, I might not continue, and whatever you do is like in the right direction is great. So I'm not saying, but I might also slip back into what I was doing before. If I do it all or none, that's my personality and it works better for me, because doing it part way, the chances are that I'm going to actually start sliding back into my old habits. But if I can stay focused on what I'm doing, again, that works better for me. But that doesn't mean it's for you. Okay, so here's some tips for the best success. And now we're talking about the food addict stuff specifically. So to me, for best success as on your food addictions, the whole food, plant-based, and moving away from those junk or trigger foods is the best. And number 1, no junk food or trigger foods in the house. Okay. Get rid of them all. Clean your pantry. Don't have them in your house. Now, I know, like my kids, I don't eat chips because they're one of my trigger foods. And I have a rule that I don't eat chips. And I'm that works for me. But, when it comes to food addiction, it's one day at a time. And I know that if I start eating chips, I'll probably go binge on a bunch of chips, and then I'm going to feel bad about it. And I'm going to basically undo all the good work that I've done. So we have chips in our house sometimes, not often, but sometimes. So one of my daughters will get chips. She keeps them in her room, and that's fine because I'm not in her room. I never go into her room. And then we also have some food baskets that are not see-through, so you can't see them, and they're up high on top of the pantry. And to be honest, I don't even look in them. But if I had that itch for something salty, I might go look and see what's in those baskets because I want something salty, and then have to hope that it's nothing that I want to eat. So if you can get them out of the house, and that's the best. I know some people will have like a safe, like a locker that's locked, literally locked, and they don't know the combination, and then their partner or their family can get their junk food they want. But here's what I'm going to say. If the junk food isn't good for you, it's not good for them either. So if you can get them to agree to not eat it in the house, if they want to eat it, they can eat it somewhere else, or maybe get them to be on board not to eat it at all. That I think would be the best if you can do it. Good luck, however, but if you can get that junk food out of the house, you may have you may think, oh my gosh, I need chips, but now you have to go out to get the chips, which is going to take some energy to do. Maybe it's cold outside, maybe it's raining outside, and you might say, yeah, no, I don't want it to get that. It's not worth the effort. Or you wait 15 minutes and then you decide, no, I'm not going to go out to get the chips. So you may have better success at staving off those cravings that you have, because you're going to need to, right? Another true thing that you can do for success is to do a weekly meal plan. And this is something that I will admit I was definitely not good at. But if I plan ahead and I know what I'm going to have for dinner, or I know what I'm making, then I make it. But if I don't plan ahead and now, I've been working all day, it's 6:00, what am I going to make for dinner? The chances are I'm not going to do my best. For me, I'd probably pick my go-to, which would have been to make pasta with sauce or butter. Hey, OJ's pasta with butter. And just like that's it. So, if you know if you have a plan and you follow it, that's good. So for me, making a plan was a hard thing and I didn't do it. But I do have a plan now. And why it works for me is because it's simple. I can make the foods ahead of time and then just warm everything up. And you saw some of the foods I was eating yesterday, if you watched yesterday in the jar. So I can warm up the hot food, like my potato and my baked cooked beets and my Brussels sprouts and onions and tomatoes that I've made. I can bake them. And then I can make my salad, and I have my dressing all ready to go. So it's easy for me to put it together. And I already know that that's what I'm going to have for lunch. And I basically follow very similar stuff for lunch every day. I can change it up on what kind of salad I have, what dressing I have, but I'm following the same pattern. I'm always having my salad bowl, if you want, for my lunch. And so what I eat might change, but it's the same principle all the time. And that has really been a game changer for me. May not for you, but it definitely has been for me. Because I don't have to make a whole meal plan. And maybe you make a weekly meal plan and you have the same meal plan for every week. Or you have 2 weeks of meal plans and you alternate. You have week 1, week 2, then you go back to week 1 and then week 2. And you prepare ahead. Maybe you make a batch that's good for 3 days and you figure out which days you want to have that. Or you make a bunch for dinner and you also make a portion that's going to be your lunch the next day. So there's lots of different ways and combinations that you can do it. But again, the whole idea is if you know what you're going to be eating, you're prepared and you prepare ahead, you're not leaving it to chance, and it's more likely that you will be successful. Now, here's the deal. You need to do what works for you. I did a thing on juicing one time, and I asked the expert what kind of juicer is the best juicer, and she said the one that you actually will use. And so, what's the right plan for you? The best plan is the one that works for you. We're all different. We all have different ways that we work. And so you need to figure out what the best plan is that works for you. And we're not all going to like the same plan, or it's not going to work for us. And we guess we can't fool ourselves to think that what works for me might not work for you, but maybe what works for me will work for you. I said, I'm an all or nothing person. And so the best thing is I know that. And so I plan that way, and I figure out what has worked for me, and that's what I follow. I don't think you can do anything else. And I'll leave with another this is a Chinese proverb. The best time to plant a tree was 20 years ago. The second best time is now. And so, if you're ready, maybe, it would have been nice to make changes 20 years ago, or I wish I would have known this 20 years ago. Don't beat yourself up. Don't think twice. The past is the past. That's the wake. That's nothing we can do to change it. So just move forward. Decide what will work for you. Maybe right now isn't the right time for you, or you don't need to make any changes. But if you're looking to make changes, now is a good time. All right. Any questions from you ladies?
No questions, Debbie. I think for me, I want to be an all or nothing person, and I'll try that. And then it doesn't really work for me. So then I go back to like the gradual changes. But I do try. It's just a question of sustaining. But,
Yeah. So you bring up a good point that I want to make. And I actually had kind of in my mind thought about it, but I didn't actually make the point is, you can go for an all or nothing and try. I'm not going to say a challenge, because you can do a challenge, and I've done a bunch of challenges, but after the challenge is up and you'd make this great for a month, after the challenge is up, I tend to end up going gradually back to what I was doing before. So that's why I don't want to call it a challenge. But if it's a journey, and I've thought a lot about this and how I think it should work, and I think that you should try diving right in, and then you get the benefits to see how it does for you. But nothing is written in stone. You can always make changes. You can always go back to what works for you. And I'll I remember when I was looking for my first job after I quit, after I finished university. And my mom and I, where I lived, did not have any jobs available for what I wanted to do. And the place that had the jobs was about 3 hours away. So my mom and I went on this trip because I had one company that was looking for somebody, and another company had said to me, "Oh, if you're ever in town, come and see us." So I had these two interviews set up. And the first one was for the job. And the company, like, they put on a great show. Like, they were the best company. They were so smooth and everything. But they kind of dangled the carrot in front of my face, but never really did anything. Like, they didn't give me an offer, or they didn't say, give me any next steps. But the other one, I went there for what I thought was just to meet them and network. And they said, "Oh, as luck has it, we have a job opening." And so I went for the interview. They didn't realize I was from out of town. So they, when they found out I was from out of town, they had the other person interview me, and then they came back and they offered me the job right there. And I was stunned. I was like, didn't know what to think. And I went downstairs after this was done. Like, they literally gave me the offer and everything. And my mom said, "What happened?" And I wasn't happy. I was stunned. Like, I just was like so stunned. And she was surprised. She didn't realize that because of the way I looked. But the long story short, I wasn't as enamored with them as I was with the other company. And so I was like, I didn't know what to do. And my mom just said, nothing is written in stone. If you don't like it here, you can always change and do what you want. So when it comes to, and I ended up taking the job and loved it there. So I didn't need to make any changes. So that was the end of that story.
Yay!
But it just goes to show, the whole point is nothing is written in stone. And so if you dive right head first and you don't like it, or it's too much, you can always cut back. If you go plant-based, I'd love to see you stay plant-based. But if you want, you can add stuff back in if you really feel like it. And especially if you have chronic illness, if you start by eating a good diet that can help you reverse your chronic disease, maybe later you can move to an 80-20 rule and not have to be so strict on it. So all of that choice is up to you. So yeah, if you dive head first, but then end up being more gradual, and that's the way you work, that's the way you work.
Thank you.
What can you say? All right. Well, we've done a little bit of a review on kind of what we talked about on food addiction. We've talked about whether you'd go gradual or you go right away and do head first, jump right in. And then what's best for you? The answer is going to be what's best for you is what works for you. And tomorrow at 2 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time, again, we are going to be talking about some of the social aspects and how you can deal with those, because those are important as well. So in the meantime, I want to remind you that tonight is the Goals Reinvented. So if you are looking for a new way to look at goals and are interested in what feeling good now kind of goals, then join me at 7 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time today as I talk about Goals Reinvented. In the meantime, have a wonderful day, and we'll see you tomorrow. Bye, everyone.